Working in challenging environments, that's a task many of us have to face during our daily business. And every time you think you have a real challenge, or some even might call it a real problem, I'm going to tell you some people actually love the challenge and love the problem. Today, we're going to talk to Marc Amerigo, who not only broke the world record as an engineer to go downhill with a bike at 141 miles per hour. Yes, miles per hour downhill on a bike. He's now on the way to plan to break the world record for sailing, going faster than 65 knots. Yes, on water. Hello and welcome, Marc Amerigo.
Yeah, hello, Niels. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much for your time. My first question, of course, is I just assume you don't have a death wish. So why do you chase these records, which are close to impossible when you hear about them in the first place? When you start and tell people, I want to go downhill on a bike with 140 miles per hour, people must say you're absolutely, you must have lost your mind. That will be the standard reaction. Why do you go for it?
Oh, but it's not about going for death. It's about extending the risk zone, so making it possible technically and humanly to get there. So it's just a challenge of like seeing things in a different way. You don't expose yourself. You just like try to master the environment and master your skills. So it's totally different.
Okay, so how did you get the idea? I mean, no one has the idea to go 141 miles on a bike on their free will. So how did you get to that idea?
Oh, it's a long story with my friend Brabandt, who's the pilot. He's a stuntman as well. And he started in 95 with a standard bike. And when I met him, I said, what about going faster and being more comfortable? He was looking at me saying, are you serious? Yeah, you can go faster and be more comfortable. And it's all about the technical way of doing it. You work on the aerodynamics, you work with people to make it accessible. So that's how it started from, let's say, 100 miles per hour, and then 120, and then 130. And then with the last world record that we made together in 3 years ago, just 3 years ago, it was about just getting to something very precise, everything in detail, and creating a big momentum with the people.
So, well, you of course have a higher risk, and let's face it, when you do these kind of projects, you have a higher risk. The first question that most people will face is, how do I get funding when I have a project where there's a high likelihood to fail? I mean, you have sponsors from very prestigious, very well-known companies, and these companies don't give money away easily. How do you convince people to give you money for a project that most people will consider dangerous or even insane?
It's just because you make it less dangerous. It's about mastering your project. When you look at adventurers, the best of them are the ones who are the most precise in how they prepare it. So it's all about preparation, being aware of the risks, and putting everything together to minimize these risks, and being really aware of what's going to happen. And people follow you because you're conscious of what you're doing, and you really put all the chances, I mean, all the possibilities on your side. So you lower the risk.
Okay. So often we hear, especially from, let's say, motivationally oriented people, inspirationally oriented people, especially in the motivational speaking industry, we often hear it's not about being perfect. You should be in the moment. In the moment is creating the best opportunities. Would you say that they are wrong?
They are right, and they are wrong.
What do you mean with that?
Yeah. The first thing to do is to make sure that everything is technically under control, that you can hit the target, that you can reach the performance that you want to achieve. That's the first thing to do. And then when you are in the moment, you are in a kind of flow because you prepared everything before. You can rely on the technique, you can rely on the whole process, and everybody knows what he has to do. So it's something which is in between preparation, very deeply, very precisely, and also the mindset and letting go when you're performing. So that's where things happen, and create like this kind of energy of the people, like the collective, the tribe, that will make that everybody relies on each other. Everybody is looking at each other. There's no ego. It's all about the collective purpose. So there are right on one way, but they are
Hmm.
deeply wrong, because if you're in the flow with not enough preparation, you can die.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when you favor preparation as a German, of course, I have to agree because we just love planning. This is just how we are.
Yeah, you're
But
good at it.
getting to the point where you just said there were no egos. Often in companies, you have people who expose themselves to be the number one leader, the person they all look up to, which of course has something to do with ego. Do you think that these projects where you strive for excellence and world records are impossible to achieve when you have someone with an ego in the team?
Everybody has ego and has to deal with it.
Hmm.
The question is about making it like in a different way, make it people live together and taking care of the other.
Hmm.
When you have ego in the story, people just act for themselves first, and it can be like a disaster. In the future, from what I see, organizations will have to be more productive with less resources, more constraints, and to serve, I would say, as many people as possible. In
Hmm.
this case of this world of tomorrow, I would say, we will need to have those two dimensions, what I call ultra performance. It's about high level of performance and also a deep, powerful collective, like a tribe. And when you act like looking at each other, caring at each other, egos drop. Um,
Hmm.
Leadership is alternative. There is less conflict, less tension, and the whole project, the whole collective goes well together, and you achieve like great things, great stuff. So in the future, there will be egos, but people we have to behave in a slightly different way to
Hmm.
achieve like high level performance,
Hmm.
like in our cases, in what we do.
Yeah. So you mentioned the term flow, and of course there was a lot of scientific work done by Mihaly about that. But when you say flow is important, and many of us experience the flow, and now and we know it's a great state to be in. But when you work under pressure, you have external funding, you have a very difficult goal to achieve. How do you keep the flow alive, or how do you even create a flow when at the same time you have such amount of pressure?
Oh, you deal with the pressure. It's a deep work on yourself. It's a kind of inner work. The
Hmm.
pressure is part of the system. Chaos is in our mind. Nature is like a kind of special state. Can be
Hmm.
hurting you, but it's all fine. You're on your trajectory. You're on your path, and you keep going. When you have like this kind of global view, you can let things go because you're well prepared, because you have the
Hmm.
best team you can have, because people are motivated, and all the whole project makes sense for them, so they are really
Hmm.
involved. So as soon as all these pieces are working well together, you can like step back a little bit and be in this kind of very special state. In any case, from my own experience of these things, like many times, um, everything is prepared for you to be in this very special state at the very moment. Everything
Hmm.
is like really focused on being in this state at the very moment. Like in the Olympic Games, the guy arrives there and his only purpose is to be ready and be in the flow.
Hmm.
The exact same story for any kind of organization.
Excellent,
Be in
excellent.
the
So,
flow.
if I may ask, when you tried to go downhill on that bike to beat the world record, did you achieve it with the first try?
Um, it's like you prepare yourself and you have to achieve it at the first try or maybe the second one. If you don't achieve
Okay,
it, is that something's wrong because you want
okay.
to really experience everything to be ready. The only problem we have is that we don't really know what's going to happen because we are in the unknown. So when you try the
Hmm.
bit, when you have this attempt, you don't really know what's going to happen. So it's just because of calculation, involvement, commitment, presence, being in the
Yeah,
now, that you do everything possible to make it happen. So everything is made to beat the world record at the very first attempt because there's so
yeah.
much risk, so much risk.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's transfer that to the corporate world. Someone has a risky project. They have the first try, and let's say, although they're prepared perfectly well, the first try does not work. Of course, now everyone comes out of their corner and say, "Look, I told you it's not going to work." How do you convince people who now show up that the management still gives you commitment to continue with the project, although the first try was a failure. Especially as an engineer, and you are an engineer, you know these situations, but we know that most companies are not led by engineers. They are led by people who have a business degree or some business network which brought them in their position, and they simply say, it costs me a lot of money, it doesn't work, why should I go on?
Failure is part of the game. It's part of the path. You have a purpose, you have a goal, and hitting the goal the very first time, I would say, doesn't teach you a lot. It's just like you've just made it and it's done. What's very interesting and very important today, and more than ever, I think, is the whole story. What happened during the path? When you made the world record, it's amazing to say, but it just lasts for like a few seconds. And what you remember is like these few seconds forever. But you remember the whole story before that and how you got there. And when you fail, it's just part of the story. When you, like later on, after the world record, at some point you fail, because we have like many failure. It's not the first attempt is not always a world record, of course. So you do things, you try things, but the very day you know when you're gonna make it, it's like, okay, that's today, this morning we will make it. And the whole story is very important. So if you bring everybody in the story, it's like in this attempt for the sailing world record, we got 3 years of story ahead. We're just starting now. So people know that when they come in, it's a 3 years story. That's why you can document on the platforms like Netflix or other platforms. You can have time to do great things. So when you go for a project, just explain and tell the story. Tell what is the reality. Don't hide things, because it's part of nature. It's part of reality.
So when you say 3 year story before the success happened, can we then say, because at the moment, especially during crisis moments, at every corner we have events coming up which say 7 days to the 7-step success system to become successful in 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 days. Can we say that when you want to strive for excellence, it's not happening quickly? Is that correct?
No, it's not. It's not happening quickly. Putting a time clock on success is, I would say, it pushes you away from reality. It pushes you away from the experience, from the life experience, and that's where you grow, and that's where you can do and you can achieve much, much more. Let's say that you want to hit a small target, and you're sure that you will make it next week. Okay, that's like incremental steps. That's like small things. When you want to go for big, it takes time. It takes a lot of learning, because you're in the unknown. And today we are in the unknown with this crisis. We don't know where to go. We absolutely have no clue. Yeah.
So when do you think, does that mean when you now plan for the world record for a new speed in sailing, a new speed world record, you don't know at the moment when you're going to hit the goal?
No, we don't know. That might be within 14 months. But that could be in 3 years.
Okay, so somewhere in between there. So when we have listeners now, to wrap this all up, when we have listeners now who say, I like to know, where do I start? Like the top 3 tips when I have a very, let's say, difficult goal, I want to make it happen, and I just want to know from someone who made it, who is you, the top 3 tips, how do I start? What are your top 3 tips?
The first one is to be able to start from a blank sheet. You start from a blank sheet, and you just like visualize this goal, and you visualize everything that comes around. It can like be plugged to it, like every connection that you have within your own life and within your own experience, or within your own team experience. That's the first step. The second one for me is really to build the path there, the strategy, the technical approach. On every field. It's not only technical, that can be about the organization, about the skills, competencies, and so on. And the third one is to build the team. When I say build the team, it's not about choosing people, but it's about building and empowering team and people, and being in the best mindset. That's the 3 keys. Create. Excellent. So it's about vision and innovation. Second is about having this I would say strategy, which is mainly technical, And the third one, with the best you can find, not the one who's not really sure of what he knows, the best you can find. And the third one is about the mindset.
Perfect. I think these are perfect words to wrap it all up. We, of course, will follow you during this project and will, of course, keep our listeners regularly updated how this project is going. For today, there's only one thing I can say. Thank you very much, Marc. And of course, I'm going to put your contact data in the show notes so people can contact you directly in case they have any questions, like to have you speak at their conference or whatever else they would like to ask you about. So thank you very much, Marc.
Niels. Just connect.
Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Niels. Bye.
Bye.